The Apollo program, also known as Project Apollo, was the third United States human spaceflight program carried out by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, which succeeded in preparing and landing the first humans on the Moon from 1968 to 1972. It was first conceived in 1960 during President Dwight D. Eisenhower's administration as a three-person spacecraft to follow the one-person Project Mercury, which put the first Americans in space. Apollo was later dedicated to President John F. Kennedy's national goal for the 1960s of landing a man on the Moon and returning him safely to the Earth, in an address to Congress on May 25, 1961. It was the third U.S. human spaceflight program to fly, preceded by the two-person Project Gemini conceived in 1961 to extend spaceflight capability in support of Apollo. Kennedy's goal was accomplished on the Apollo 11 mission when astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed their Apollo Lunar Module, LM, on July 20, 1969, and walked on the lunar surface, while Michael Collins remained in lunar orbit in the Command and Service Module, CSM, and all three landed safely on Earth in the Pacific Ocean on July 24. 5 subsequent Apollo missions also landed astronauts on the Moon, the last, Apollo 17, in December 1972. In these 6 spaceflights, 12 people walked on the Moon. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin, standing on the Moon. Buzz Aldrin, pictured, walked on the Moon with Neil Armstrong, on Apollo 11, July 20–21, 1969. Earthrise, the iconic 1968 image from Apollo 8 taken by astronaut William Anders. Apollo ran from 1961 to 1972, with the first crewed flight in 1968. It encountered a major setback in 1967 when an Apollo 1 cabin fire killed the entire crew during a pre-launch test. After the first successful landing, sufficient flight hardware remained for 9 follow-on landings with a plan for extended lunar geological and astrophysical exploration. Budget cuts forced the cancellation of 3 of these. 5 of the remaining 6 missions achieved successful landings, but the Apollo 13 landing was prevented by an oxygen tank explosion in transit to the Moon, crippling the CSM. The crew barely returned to Earth safely by using the lunar module as a lifeboat on the return journey. Apollo used the Saturn family of rockets as launch vehicles, which were also used for an Apollo applications program, which consisted of Skylab, a space station that supported 3 crewed missions in 1973–1974, and the Apollo-Soyuz TAES.